We are kicking off with WWE, and at NXT Roadblock, Giulia lost the NXT Women's title to Stephanie Vaquer, bringing an abrupt end to the reign of the Beautiful Madness. As previously reported, Giulia was dealing with some injuries going into the match, but it turns out this isn't the only issue that the Japanese star has been dealing with. During Wrestling Observer Live, Brian Alvarez shared that Giulia is also dealing with a minor visa issue, which will need to be sorted before she wrestles again. Speaking about the injury, Alvarez shared that in the internal listings her setback is undisclosed, raising more questions about the status of the former champion. The decision to rush a match between Giulia and Vaquer immediately raised eyebrows, with fans questioning why WWE wouldn't save it for a bigger event like Stand and Deliver. Now we know why WWE had to rush the title-for-title match with little build, and on Twitter, Giulia reacted to her loss, saying it was frustration, but Stephanie deserved the win. Giulia congratulated her friend but made clear that she's not done yet, and concluded by saying that she's still burning with determination. While Giulia will wrestle again, it remains to be seen when that will be, as for the time being, the Japanese superstar has multiple matters to sort out first before she's back in the ring. It was in September 2023 that TKO Group Holdings was launched, officially merging WWE and UFC into one company, and now a massive crossover event could be on the horizon. On the Wrestling Informer podcast, it was shared that discussions are underway for a massive crossover event featuring WWE action, UFC fights, and boxing matches. These are the three major brands under the TKO umbrella, and it's believed that the show will take place in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. If the event goes ahead, it's reported that the show will feature 3 WWE matches, 2 UFC bouts, one of which being for a title, and a major boxing title fight. A celebrity boxing fight would complete the card, and sources reported that Logan Paul is expected to be involved, though it's unclear whether it'd be for WWE or for boxing. Another name being tossed around is Conor McGregor, with TKO reportedly very eager to bring him into the mix, though it's unclear if he'd compete under boxing or make a UFC return. There are also questions about a potential backlash to the use of McGregor after a jury ruled earlier this year that he assaulted a woman in a hotel room in Dublin in December 2018. The report added that this event could replace WWE's annual Crown Jewel event if plans for the cross-branded event can be locked in by this November. It's worth reiterating that discussions for the event are still in the early stages, and at this time, nothing concrete like a specific date or specific location has been locked in. If TKO can make this event work, it'd prove to be one of the most ambitious crossover events in combat sports history, and one that fans from all three sides will watch. During this week's Raw, CM Punk and Seth Rollins battled in the show's main event, and there was a lot of censorship as the pair faced off inside a steel cage. This took fans by surprise, given that Raw is now on Netflix and away from the rules of standard TV, but there was a reason behind this censorship. While speaking during a Q&A session, WrestleVotes was asked about the rampant censorship, which included edits to audio and moments where both men gave the middle finger. Sources at Netflix shared that WWE has full control over Raw's production, and censoring the middle fingers had to do with the aesthetics of the main event. Given that the match was in a cage, WWE felt that the color contrast wouldn't have looked good, and it was their call to black it out as a purely aesthetic decision. WWE may let a lot more slide these days, but they didn't want these gestures to be aired, though apparently it had nothing to do with WWE feeling the gesture crossed a line. At the 2025 Royal Rumble, Alexa Bliss made her return to the ring after 2 years away, immediately exciting fans as to what her direction will look like ahead of WrestleMania. On their Q&A session, WrestleVotes shared that Bliss will have a major angle at the Showcase of the Immortals, and it'll be tied to the Wyatt Six. The report didn't give specifics, but said that something will happen at WrestleMania that will blow wide open what she'll be doing. Bliss's most recent match was part of the Women's Elimination Chamber, and whatever WWE has planned for her, fans should be learning of it on the road to Las Vegas. Over to AEW Dynamite, which started off with Kenny Omega earning a huge ovation from the fans as the brand new International Champion. The crowd gave Omega a rousing "You deserve it" chant as the cleaner addressed holding his first singles championship in AEW in a very long time. Putting over ex-champion Konosuke Takeshita, Omega vowed to be a great holder of the gold before turning his focus to the Dynasty Eliminator to determine his first challenger. Given that this tournament had already been announced, Omega didn't add anything new to the storyline, but it's always good to hear from the Canadian. The segment made clear Omega is moving on from his feud with the Don Callis family in a segment that didn't last any longer than it needed to be. Are you pleased to see Omega with championship gold again? Who would you like to see him face at AEW Dynasty? Share your thoughts down in the comments section. In the first match of the tournament, Speedball Mike Bailey made his AEW debut as the wild card and advanced to the next round with a win over the Beast Mortos. This was a great debut for Bailey, who managed to make Mortos look deadly before overwhelming him with his blend of strikes and athleticism. Taking to Twitter after the match, Tony Khan confirmed that Bayley is now all elite in what will arguably be the biggest opportunity of the Canadian's career to date. Bayley had to win this match, but eventually AEW will need to give Mortos a serious run of victories for him to remain a serious and credible threat in the ring. The Speedball could easily be a favorite to win the entire tournament, setting up an exceptional match at Dynasty against Kenny Omega. We've got some releases to report next, as Fightful Select has confirmed that WWE has made multiple cuts to its production departments from behind the scenes. These cuts follow a string of talent releases that saw Giovanni Vinci, AOP, Sonya Deville, and the Good Brothers cut, with some believing this was done to make room for NXT call-ups. 2025 has already been a huge year for changes to WWE's production, thanks in no small part to the launch of WWE content on Netflix. It's never fun to lose a job, and we can only hope that those let go from behind the scenes aren't out of work for long before landing in a new career. Last December, WWE resurrected its Saturday night's main event show, giving fans a taste of nostalgia while delivering a modern-day stylized product. One name fans didn't see at the show was Bronson Reed, who is out of action with an ankle injury, and WWE had plans for him at the event. Speaking with WFAN, Seth Rollins shared that he and Reed were set to clash at the show and was disappointed to miss out on the event that had Jesse Ventura on commentary. Reed's injury occurred at Survivor Series 2024 when he dove off the top of the War Games structure, and Reed has said this setback will mean he won't compete at WrestleMania. As for Rollins, all signs are pointing to a triple threat match at WrestleMania with CM Punk and Roman Reigns, the latter of whom returned during this week's Raw. With WWE set to host multiple Saturday night's main event shows a year, Rollins will have his chance to compete in the future, but it just wasn't meant to be in 2024 thanks to Reed's injury. In the ring on Dynamite, MJF made excuses for his Revolution loss to Hangman Adam Page, only to be interrupted by MVP, who offered him a Hurt Syndicate business card. MJF turned down the card at first before MVP reminded him that he was a world champion, making clear that the peak of MJF's success is now in the past tense. With that in mind, MJF took the card and pocketed it, and it's difficult to say where things will go from here between two of AEW's very best talkers. The pair showed respect to one another, though clearly have different goals, with MJF wanting to go after Hangman Page once more. MVP, however, wants MJF to focus on the World Championship picture, presenting an intriguing opportunity for MJF to win back the title he last held in 2023. It certainly appears that MVP's plan is working out, as later in the show, MJF ran into Page and promised to walk past him to win the AEW World title again and again. While the idea of MVP managing MJF sounds promising, we can't count out this leading to a feud between the two, with MJF needing allies of his own to battle the Hurt Syndicate. Whatever comes, this was the first step on what's sure to be an interesting angle between MJF and the faction, one that could have huge ramifications for the very top of AEW. Do you like the idea of MVP and MJF working together, or do you think that MJF doesn't need a manager? Should MJF become world champion again? Share your thoughts below. After an incredible promo package highlighting the Revolution match between Toni Storm and Mariah May, the Timeless One dared anyone to step up to her next. Megan Bayne arrived to do exactly that and laid out Storm with a forearm to the back of the head before standing tall over the champion in a clear message. Once again, Storm's promo was excellent, as she has proven time and time again, and having Bayne get the upper hand on the Women's World Champion was a memorable statement. While she's only been with AEW for a short period of time, Bayne has been presented as a dominant monster, the likes of which the AEW Women's Division has never seen before. After beating names like Chris Statlander and Thunder Rosa, it makes sense for Bayne to move up the card, and she could bring Storm's reign to a swift end sooner rather than later. In recent years, fans have taken issue with many aspects of AEW, and one common complaint is that between AEW and ROH, there are too many titles in the company. That could be set to change soon, as following Kenny Omega's win at Revolution, there has been speculation about merging the International and Continental Championships. According to Fightful Select, sources within AEW have talked about this possibility for months, with some even considering it a done deal from a creative standpoint. It wasn't stated how AEW would merge these titles, but it's clear that consolidating these two championships into one gold is the clear direction at this time. In September 2024, AEW retired the FTW Championship in its effort to streamline the title scene, with Hook presenting the title back to his father Taz. Having the International and Continental titles merged would mean a showdown between Kenny Omega and Kazuchika Okada, a bona fide match to excite the AEW fanbase. Should AEW cut back on its number of title belts? Please share your thoughts and feedback in the comments section below. Christian Cage tried to excuse his failed cash-in at Revolution, but Nick Wayne stood up to him on Dynamite, claiming Cage was lying and owed the patriarchy an apology. Cage ran down Wayne for questioning him with a phenomenal promo, and could we be seeing the signs of a Nick Wayne face turn and feud with Cage? Time will tell. In a private room, Chris Jericho mocked Bandito while holding the mask of gravity, and the seriousness of Jericho's words helped deliver one of the best promos he's had in a while. Penelope Ford nearly countered everything Willow Nightingale had to offer, but in the end, it was the former AEW TBS champion who got the win in their match. Ford attacked Willow with a chair post-match, and when Chris Statlander arrived to make the save, Megan Bayne showed up to take out both Willow and Statlander. This was a decent match between two veterans of AEW, and while the post-match fight was not as lean, it did what it needed to do by continuing to build up Bayne. In one night, Bayne took out Willow, Statlander, and Toni Storm, making a potential title change seem more likely than ever before. We've got an update about the natural disasters who were recently reported for the WWE Hall of Fame, and now that has been confirmed. Speaking to Bill Apter, Fred Ottman, aka Typhoon, shared that Bruce Pritchard called him personally with the news that he and Earthquake are to be inducted this year. Sadly, the induction of Earthquake, real name John Tento, will be posthumous, but fans will get to see the natural disasters take their rightful place in the Hall of Fame next month. At Elimination Chamber, Jade Cargill returned to WWE and attacked Naomi, who has since confirmed that she was the one who ambushed Cargill back in November. On SmackDown, Naomi, already rocking a neck brace, was attacked by Cargill once again, and that has left the Glow needing to seek treatment. When a fan on Twitter wished Naomi a good night, she shared that she needed neck therapy early the next morning, so she was going to sleep. It seems she didn't quite go to sleep straight away, as she proceeded to fire off tweets attacking Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill, though those were deleted. The tweet about needing neck therapy was also deleted, and we'll have to see what all this means for Naomi now that her heel turn has been confirmed. If Raw's debut on Netflix on January 6th proved one thing, it's that Hulk Hogan isn't the beloved star among wrestling fans he once was, and now the Hulkster is back in hot water. According to a report from News 12, Hogan was set to appear at a meet and greet event in Orange County, New York earlier this week to promote his Real American Beer brand. Fans lined up for hours to meet the wrestling icon, but as the event unfolded, those near the back were turned away, despite being told they'd have the chance to meet Hogan. Robert Taylor attended the event with his children, who had a trading card for Hogan to sign, and they were rejected despite being told different earlier. Taylor told News 12, "They said he could only see up to number 200, and we were 185. They, Hogan and his team, just stood up and bolted along the back. Some lady was very upset, screaming and cursing. My son just started crying, and a bunch of other kids were crying." A video from the event has also circulated online showing frustrated fans leaving empty-handed despite queuing for hours just to have a brief moment with Hogan. In the interview, Taylor added that if Hogan had to leave, he could have at least walked past the disappointed fans and shook some hands rather than leaving his fans stranded. This is hardly a good look for Hogan, who has yet to respond to requests for comment, as Hulkamania was far from running wild this week in Orange County. Back to AEW Dynamite now, as a trio of local competitors proved no match for the Opps, and it was Katsuyori Shibata who got the win for his team. This match came after Kenny Omega's segment, and there was an interesting moment as Shibata stared down the international champion before the Opps headed to the ring. As for the match, there was little to it, as one would expect, and AEW continues to prove that the trio of Shibata, Hook, and Samoa Joe are not to be taken lightly. With that said, if AEW's ultimate goal is for the Opps to have a trios match with the Death Riders, then they need to start facing and beating much bigger teams. Excalibur shared the exciting news that the AEW World Championship will be on the line next week, as Jon Moxley will face Cope in an AEW Revolution Street Fight rematch. Cope found Swerve Strickland and teased the pair facing off at Dynasty, though that all hinges on the Rated R superstar dethroning Moxley next week. The leader of the Death Riders mocked Cope as a man with excuses and vowed to beat the WWE Hall of Famer definitively in the ring next week. It's certainly an interesting move for AEW to go to the AEW World Title rematch less than 2 weeks after Cope vs. Mox, and one has to wonder if AEW is trying to undo things. After all, their match at Revolution, though fine enough, hardly received rave reviews, especially when compared to the Toni Storm, Mariah May Hollywood ending war. Perhaps AEW is trying to deliver the match fans expected at Revolution on next week's Dynamite, and if so, time will tell if they can succeed in winning over audiences. But what do you think? Is it too soon to go into Cope vs. Moxley 2? Should Cope win the gold at next week's Dynamite in the street fight? Let us know your thoughts below. Mercedes Moné struggled to speak due to bruises suffered at the hands of Momo Watanabe, and Billy Starks challenged her to a TBS title match for next week. Now, CM Punk has worked with some of wrestling's biggest names, but one name he hasn't worked with is Moose, despite the efforts of the TNA X Division champion. On Twitter, Moose shared that during his reign as world champion, there were plans for Punk to come to TNA and have a feud, but that never happened. Despite not getting to feud with Punk, Moose praised the Chicago-made star as the GOAT and teased that they may still wrestle one day, stating, "Who knows?" With the WWE TNA partnership, it seems no idea is off limits, and would this be a feud you'd like to see? Let us know down in the comments. Still hurting from his steel cage match at AEW Revolution, Will Ospreay said he needed to go home for a while and make things up to his girlfriend, Alex Windsor. Already looking ahead to his return, though, Ospreay promised to win the Owen Hart Foundation tournament and challenge for the AEW World title at All In. Ospreay continued to deliver on the mic, and while being in the world title picture has always seemed inevitable, this feels like a strange time. For one, Ospreay would be entering an already crowded title picture with names like Cope, Swerve Strickland, Jay White, and Christian Cage all hovering around Jon Moxley. Not only that, but the idea of having Ospreay win the title at the first All-In pay-per-view to not come from his native England seems like an odd choice. Given the reaction Ospreay would no doubt receive in the UK, having him wait until AEW's next year's All-In, which is confirmed for London, may not be the worst idea. Still, his promo was good and sold the significance of the Owen Hart tournament, a tournament that Ospreay will be a favorite to win. Speaking of tournaments, Orange Cassidy defeated Hechicero in Dynamite's main event to advance in the Dynasty Eliminator tournament in the best match of the night. After the win, Speedball Mike Bailey arrived to show Cassidy respect, and while this match was great, then argument could be made that Hechicero needed the win more. Cassidy has already had his shot at the international title recently, and Hechicero is still awaiting that elusive big win to push him to the next level in AEW. With that said, Cassidy is a name fans enjoy seeing, and we'll have to see how far he can go in the Dynasty Eliminator tournament. And that was AEW Dynamite, and do you think it delivered fresh off of what went down at Revolution? Share your thoughts in the comments.